Bonsoir, good evening. This is Benjamin, and I've got something a bit different for you today rather than the standard documentaries that I make. Google Translate has added a few languages onto this great tool for, well, learning languages, translating, just figuring out what something basically means. They've added the Breton language, which is related to Cymraeg, the Welsh language that I speak. It's of the Brythonic branch of the Celtic language family. And so what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to look at just basic sentences in Breton and see how similar is it to Welsh, and I'll explain the differences and the similarities. And also I find it interesting that Breton has undergone a lot of French influence over the centuries because I speak quite a bit of French, so I think I'll be able to look at written Breton and pick apart a lot of what it means, especially if I have a bit of context. So let's look at that and see how similar Breton and Welsh are with this Google Translate tool, which I recognize it's quite California in speech. It's a bit slangy, it's a bit lowbrow, but it's fine. It'll get you what you need, the basic gist of whatever your target language is saying, and I use it quite a lot for Hebrew, Dutch, so let's jump into it. Just a note, I'm not going to be able to pronounce Breton spot on. The first sentence. When I was a boy, I liked to go fishing at a lake with my grandfather. And in Breton, Panoan bihan e pligem din mont da besketa enulen gant mezad cause. Now I see some things clearly right away that are very similar. Let's look at that and break it down. Paon. That looks like pen oeddoni, when I was, in Welsh. Bihan. That's like lad or boy, but they also, one thing Google Translate does is it lets you click on the word here, and it gives you alternate cognates, if you will, especially if you just type in one single word, which I've tinkered about with it a bit to get this. But bihan sounds like bichan, like small in Welsh, a form of small. So, or bachgen, hey, boy, that's boy in Welsh. So, when I was a boy, e plige din mont, e plige, that sounds like please alone from French. Maybe, I don't know though. Din, two, I think that's two plus the verbal ending to denote that the next word is a verb of action. So mont, that's clearly related to mend, in Welsh to go. Da bisketa. So what I see here is din is to plus verb, and then da is just to, and the verb after it is in the free form. Okay, probably because it's the second verb, I don't know, but in Welsh, I biskota. And interestingly, in both cases, if that's true, it causes a mutation on P to B sound. En-ulen. That's quite different from Welsh. We'd probably say arlen, on a lake, and a llyn, in the lake. Okay, it's not that different, but they don't have the ll sound in Breton. Gant mazad cause. Gant, that sounds like geni, Northern Welsh for with me, in Southern Welsh, gyda fi. So that's quite a similar construction. Ma zad cause. So I'm guessing that masad cause, sad is mutated. So in Welsh, grandfather, in Southern Welsh, tad ki, literally beloved father. Tad ki, zad kos, ma zad kos. So I think there's some kind of mutation there, but I don't know about the mutations in Breton. That seems clear to me that's what's going on. It would be tad kos. So that's really similar. Let's go on to the next. I mean, aside from that French bit, there's going to be French bits here and there. So let's go on. Moving on. The stone was bigger than your sister, and I stood on it with an astrologer to see the ocean. Brasocheoa armain, aget da chor, ha sevelo ran vorna, gant en ster donioor, da wellet armervor. There's a couple interesting things here which suggest older Welsh to me. And they come from the common root, so there's some very older things in common here. So, brasoch, this is like thick in Welsh in terms of texture, like a thick liquid or like a muscular fella. Bras, or like the hanging fat on a leg of meat. It's bras, rich and thick. But here it seems to mean big, just in terms of size, right? Eoa are mine. I think that as we saw earlier, is kind of the pronoun for a masculine it, properly. Oa, eoa. It was, in Welsh maybe oedd is a type of saying was. Are mine, that's the stone. In Welsh we have but it's only before a vowel. Mine here is the same word, but I'm guessing it's pronounced in Breton more like mine. I don't know. Eget. That seems like it's related to Welsh, older Welsh. Nagit. We'd say nage now. Da chor, your sister. In Welsh, de chwaer. That's really similar. Ha sevel, and I stood. Now that immediately brings to mind civilly, like to establish. Sevich, to stand. So that's clearly the same root. Aran orna. Aran orna. That's Oran in Welsh is on part of. Warna, that I see Arna, Arno would be on it in Welsh. So that there's a different construction grammatically there, that it's similar, but without looking up academic books I'm not familiar with. If someone explained it to me, it looks like I'd get it like that. So that's really similar. Gant, Geni again, that's with me in Welsh. In Northern Welsh, Geni. In Southern Welsh, Gyda Ystera Doniwr, the astrologer. In Welsh, we'd say a serenith. A serenith. So that's a bit similar, but they add the ending equivalent, which may be an influence from French. Dawelet, to see. Eweld in Welsh, so they have a different word for two. Eweld, dawelet, armervor. Oh, that's interesting. Again, the article the, but mervor. That's like maurvor in Welsh, meaning big sea. So their word for ocean is literally big sea. That's cool. Next one. Building a family is good and healthy for you. Sevel famille azomat hayach evidoch. There's a few things I noticed right away. Again, that's sevel, but it's not stand. It's like cividly, to establish in Welsh. I don't know how much of that is Google Translate's margin of error, that those two are so similar. But if one of you speak Breton, let me know. Famille. I'm guessing it's pronounced a bit like French, family. That's clearly where it comes from, in my opinion. in Welsh. Azomat. Building the family azomat is that which is good. So in Welsh we have this cymal, this clause word a, which is that which is. So it takes the first part, presses it into that word, so you know going into the second part of the sentence, that's what you're explaining. So I think that's what's happening here. Zo. I don't know the so part. It's probably attached onto the a to convey the present tense, what's happening now. Mat, of course, we have mad in Welsh, which is part of our national anthem, meaning fortunate, lucky, very good. But it's also very archaic. We don't use it so much anymore, unless we're being a bit, it's kind of silly. But we know what it means. Ha-yach. Two things here. Yach is clearly the same word, yach in Welsh. It's healthy. But ha, that looks like Cornish for the word and. So you clearly have a spectrum in the British languages there. Evidoch. Evidoch. That's, in Welsh we'd say ichi or iddochi. So that's clearly the same root. Maybe they're taking it from an older root than Welsh, and there's a lost v sound in there that Welsh dropped off. That's interesting. I do think that Breton is sometimes more archaic, rather it keeps more of some of the original British Brythonicness than Welsh does in some cases. Next one. He hopes to go to Corsica this winter to see a woman. And in Breton, spered en Deus davant, da Corsica, argoav ma da welet revaus. There's a bit of French coming in there again, I think. J'espère, I hope. But it looks like they added the D to like the third person singular, because we do that in Welsh as well with certain verbs in the past tense, but they're doing it in the present tense. That's interesting. En Deus. En Deus. Spered en Deus. I'm not sure. I think that's some type of colloquial phrase, because I'm not sure what the Deus means. En Deus. Spered. Like he aspires to do? Maybe? Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. But the next one I totally get. Davant. To go. So again, that da, to, and it's mutating mont, to mend, to go in Welsh. In Welsh, I fynd. Davant. Da Corsica. Again, that's mutating Corsica. That's interesting. I Corsica in Welsh. Ar goaf ma. So, agaya ma, this winter in Welsh. Agaya ma, that's really similar. Agaya ma. Dawelet, to see. I weld in Welsh. In older Welsh, certainly be I weled. Arvauas. Arvauas. So, we have more than one word for a woman in Welsh. One of them, menu, which that looks exactly like this. It would mutate after the article just like this. A venue. A venue. They just dropped out the N and added some type of Z ending. So it's fascinating that they have French and whilst at the same time they're keeping a bit of the older British construction. I don't know about en Deus though. Next one. We can still hear each other through the oaken door if we are loud. And in Breton, clevet a reamp choas en eile gile, tre nor derv ma vesomp trosus. There's something interesting going on there that jumps at me right away. Clywed is to hear in Welsh, but it's at the beginning of the sentence here. That wouldn't happen in in Welsh in this context. So, clywed, aramp choas, choas. I don't know. Maybe it's because rhwngthymni would be between us. So, choas. I don't know if there's a purely Welsh cognate there. It's something like between us still. Here, between us still, each other. And ei gilydd, in Welsh, ei gilydd. Each other or together, ei gilydd. Dre in Welsh, drwy'r. Well, it'd be drwy'r drws, but we have another word, dor, which, this is why I chose the word oaken, because in that context, in Welsh, we can use dor with a little to bach on top. Has that happened in this exact sense as well? Or do they have another word for door? But daru is oak. In Welsh, to say darwin is oaken. Daru is oak. If we are loud, ma vesump trosus. Ma, so they have a different word for if. There's some type of plural construction happening there that doesn't happen in Welsh with the verb to be, which is quite different. But trwchus is an older way of saying a lot of ruckus, noise. That's clearly the same here. Trosus. So that one's a bit more difficult. That's a bit different. Next one. The silver key is on the Romanian book where I left it. And in Breton, en alchwes archant azowar a lever Romanic, elech maum eus elezet. I think I see a French-inspired word here, but the beginning is so much like Welsh. It's absurd. En alchwes archant. In Welsh, allwedd arian. So, the silver key. Some dialects of Welsh use agoriad, but allwedd, yeah, that's key in Welsh. Azowar. Again, that word again, so, war, is on. Yeah, so the verbal construction here is very different, and I don't know if that's just under Google Translate, but we would probably start this sentence with my. Mae'r allwedd arian. The silver key is. They don't seem to do that, which is a big difference that would completely throw a Welsh speaker off. Our lever, ar a llyfr, we would say, so that's quite similar. Romanic, that's like Romanian language. Elech mam eus elezet. And in Welsh that would be so elech. That looks like in the place, in a lle in Welsh. In a lle. Mam eus elezet. It looks like lezet is a French influence, like laissez-faire, like loose, like letting it be, leaving it, letting it go. In Welsh, le dwi gadael, llemodi wedi roi. So there's the M there. Maybe that's the doubling of the verb to be, like we would say in Welsh. Llemodi, the I and the M. Maybe that's what the double M there is. But the lezet, that's throwing me off. I wouldn't have any idea. So the grammar is different here in a very deep-rooted way with the verb to be, that it throws me off to the point where even with all the vocabulary that's so similar, I don't get quite the grammar of the connecting words. As you can see, there's a lot of similarity there, especially for core, basic everyday vocabulary, but there's a bit of French thrown in, which is going to throw a Welsh speaker clearly, and there's a bit of difference with the verb to be in how that's constructed, which in my opinion is probably much more similar to Cornish than Welsh, I think. Do any of you speak Cornish? Let me know. And for those of you who don't speak any of these Celtic languages, what's your impression about the similarity between Welsh and Breton, or the French influence on Breton? Do any of you speak French? Do you notice any similarities or words that have been loaned into French? We'll see you next time, and thank you for watching. Don't forget you can help me on Patreon, buy me a coffee, or just subscribe and like, super donate. Thank you very much for watching. Diolch yn fawr iawn, and we'll see you